Hey goblins, and welcome back to Acrylic and Aether, where we touch on the lesser seen sides of D.I.D.
This is Zeke,
And this is Tharvin.
and today we're going to be going over a question that we did on our community tab and on Instagram. We printed out all your questions, so we are prepared to answer. But first, a few announcements. We have our store up and running.
Our Teespring.
Yeah, so if you wanted some Acrylic and Aether merch, most of them have our emblem on them, and if it's a t-shirt, on the back it says #GobSquad. You can leave suggestions down in the comments if you want a certain design.
Yeah, we have more designs in the works too. We just need to make some of those designs transparent, and we also hope to have some of our art on like t-shirts and stuff. So I'm really excited for that.
It's gonna be pretty awesome.
And then there's one more thing.
Patreon. Also, keep your eyes on our Patreon if you are a patron, because we are going to be adding tiers very soon.
Actual real tiers.
One of the tiers is going to be, you'd be able to write to our actual address and send us letters, and we'd actually respond to you in letters. So,
like pen pals.
Yeah. So if you would like to get in contact with us but don't think social media is the right way to go, you're more than welcome to go ahead and be a patron and send us a letter. We have more in the works right now, but that is details to come.
Yeah, and I guess the last announcement, like, our systems are freaking growing.
Both of our systems.
We've been unearthing so much lately. We'll find ways to talk about that and get you updated as soon as we get a bearing on it, but that's what's been going on right now is, like, there's some layers. We're finding some layers.
Both of our systems. This isn't just one or the other. This is both of us. We've been going through a time of working on things. I think this quarantine has really given our brain a, hey, remember this?
It's been a time, but we'll probably make a video about ours, like, later. I don't know about what you want to do, but it's so much.
System updates, but actually inner world updates.
Inner world updates.
All right, well, let's get into your questions.
All right, to those who didn't see this thing, these are the responses to the question in our community tab, which asked what you wanted to know about amnesia and how it related to dissociative identity disorder. This video right now, it's going to be like the first in a little series about amnesia because it's been a pretty hot topic in the D.I.D. and OSDD community right now. And I don't think one video could fit everything in here. It's a lot of questions. So for this first video, we're basically just going to do a Q&A until we're just done answering questions. And we will have a part 2 with some more research and stuff up in the near future.
Yes. All right, so what's our first question?
Our first question is, so I'm just basically going to be reading these questions, but I won't tell people's usernames because that's impolite. Is there such a thing as being aware but not connected? For example, you can feel that person X exists, but you have no communication, know who they are, or see them, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we experienced that to an Excel. Yeah, definitely. Especially with our new island that we have. It's been more lately.
Definitely. And we have that a lot. God, we've had an altar that's been in our system for almost 2 years, and we still don't know where this guy is. Like, we know that he exists. He's fronted. He's been here. And, like, we don't know where he is.
Yeah, and we had a little last night front without us knowing about it. We have 2 memories from them fronting, but they aren't allowed to say their names, so we have no clue who they are, where they're from. We know they're there, but yeah.
Yeah, you can have very limited information, or just even, like, knowledge of, like, a trait or something for an altar. Like, oh, I know there's this guy with spiky hair in the system, and he's an altar. And sometimes you have just little bits. How do you work on communicating with your altars so that there's less confusion after a switch? Also, what should you do if you suspect you have D.I.D?
So the first one, I would try to work on inner dialogue, trying to get your alters to communicate with you. So definitely a process. That links in with the second answer. If you suspect you have DID, you should definitely find a therapist. They would be able to give you communicating tips, how to work on those inner workings. For us, we basically had a notebook for the first year that we figured everything out, and that really helped.
Notebooks are like like the classic D.I.D. communication tip is keep a journal. Plus those can get really interesting. You can find like all sorts of drawings and notes in there from your alters, and it can be a real fun time. Sticky notes are good too. And then like honestly, going through your phone history.
Yeah.
Like you can learn a lot about people. Like people take a lot of random pictures on your phone sometimes, and then you just like, oh, someone likes photographing trees. We are an OSDD 1B system, so we don't experience amnesia, but some of us don't remember certain memories. Is that normal? Yes. Yes, it is. Like, OSDD 1B may not have, like, complete amnesia, but there is still the memory loss component in there when the identity is compartmentalized as it is.
And it's kind of like you don't really remember certain aspects of things in general.
Plus, like, dissociation already messes with your memories too, and OSDD is a dissociative disorder as well. So, like, there's that adds into that too. So there is, like, definitely things that can mess with your memory in OSDD. Absolutely.
Oh, heck yeah.
After some time, could you get bits and pieces of memories back? Yes.
Yeah, it comes with uncovering memories. You can talk to alters and get some things back. My brain is doing a fog.
Just like dissociating and like losing memories of what we're talking about in an amnesia video. That's
yeah, that's ironic. But the short answer is yes. The long answer could go on for a long time.
I'll give a longer answer. Like, it really depends on what you're talking about unearthing, because, like, if you're talking about trauma memories, those can be unearthed over time. And if you're talking about, let's say, if I just lost a day last week, that may not be as easily recovered as a trauma memory for us, honestly, because, like, short-term memory is really blurred together, and it's kind of just really just lost in the cloud. While if it's like a specific repressed memory, that's like a thing that someone's like holding on to, like they're holding this specific vivid thing from the rest of the system, and that can just be like slowly released as well, like in bits and pieces or all at once. It really varies.
Definitely.
But that's enough of an answer for that one. It could have gone on for much longer, but I'm going to cut myself off. How did you guys stay in school back before you dropped out? That's probably like with amnesia. How did you like work with that with school?
For us, I mean, we kept a notebook of all our school work. And so anybody could go in there and study the things that we had done for the day, or look back a month ago and be like, oh yeah, I missed that one, and so we'd have it in a notebook. I mean, learn to do that from teachers in elementary school anyhow. So that's kind of how we cope with it, and it's just a really good thing anyway.
Yeah. And with us, like, we had those professors that took, like, their slideshows from the day and put it on the Blackboard, which is, like, the website where basically you can put everything you want if you're a professor for your course. And they had like their slideshows for people who may have missed some things, and as someone who missed a lot of things, we appreciated that. So we basically just studied a lot. And like, we'll try to. We dissociated through that too, but the slideshows definitely helped. Can alters take memories, like block you from remembering things? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So much.
Sometimes you'll be enjoying something, and then the next minute you're kind of like, wait, I'm happy, but I don't remember why. That's happened to us a couple times on accident, but this can happen with almost any memory. But yes, the accident was just an alter really got excited over something, and then it was kind of like a micro switch, but with heavy amnesia. So when the person came back, kind of snatched that good moment.
Yeah. And alters can also take like negative memories that surface. For example, like back when we had our Josh situation, we had quite a few alters like siphoning memories and emotions away from the front and holding on to those so that it wouldn't bog down the rest of the system as a whole. So yeah, they can do that, and those can be like, some alters have to like process that on their own, and some can like be shared throughout the rest of the system, but it really depends on like what it is and how the individual is handling it.
Definitely.
And then the next question, how does it affect you?
I forget things.
Forgetfulness. General forgetfulness, honestly, that's basically how it, like, how you could see it affect us. It's like, we just appear generally forgetful. But it's more than that, usually. Oh, could you talk about amnesia for amnesia? We will often switch in and be distressed because we don't know what's going on. But later the memory of that moment is foggy again, etc. Pushes up glasses as if they'd help me to see better. Oh, right, like, when you're, like, switching in, you have amnesia of who was out before, and then amnesia after, I think. Wordings can be challenging sometimes, but I think what this is kind of touching on is, like, two-way amnesia, where, like, it's amnesia between, like, multiple parts, so there's, like, it feels like there's, like, double amnesia. Like, alter A has amnesia, and so does alter B, and so does alter C. So, like, the switches between A to B, then B to C are, like, whack, so it feels like double amnesia. Yes. I think that's two-way amnesia, where both alters are unaware of each other.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a thing. There are types of amnesia, and we'll touch more on that in the next more informational video. If this is also relevant to the topic and your system, could you also talk a bit about alters who have control over memories, and how exactly they share or hide memories among and from other alters, if there's a specific way to do it? Now, there's a few different kinds of alters that would have control over memories. There's, like, trauma holders, and then there is EPs, and then there is, like, system overwatchers, and then there's some that, like, are, like, guarding the memories, and then there's some that, like, keep others from finding the memories by showing aggression. There's, like, a whole bunch of ways to hide memories, and systems can get really creative with that. And sometimes it comes back to you in, like from revisiting things from your past. For example, like, we've been watching a bunch of movies from our past and unearthing a lot. It can be, like, it can be various ways. Healing in whatever manners that you're utilizing can also bring back memories. It just really depends on, like, your individual case.
And then sharing memories, it's kind of like telepathic communication, when alters can, like, push a memory towards you. I don't know how else to explain it, because it's kind of like an alter is just giving you something, but it's not, like, structure. Yeah,
it's kind of like a forced daydream, almost like a daydream from somebody else that's being pushed into your brain. That's kind of what it's like to communicate with alters.
And, like, for us, it almost feels like one of those memories where you know something happened, but you don't quite have everything. Like, oh, that one day at the picnic, you know, we went to the picnic, we ate some sandwiches, and you have the general details, but not all of them. So, like, that's just normal memory, I think, for humans in general. As you get older, memories kind of get foggier, so you miss different little details. But yeah, so that's kind of what it feels like for us when somebody is pushing a memory onto you.
Is it possible to first have a memory of something, and then for some reason amnesia hits it, and you know you've known it, but now it's gone, and you can't recall what you've actually known once. Does this make any sense?
Yes.
Yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense.
We've done that plenty of times.
So much. Once a dissociation wave washes away, sometimes things are gone with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, I knew this, and then when you review the information, you're like, why didn't I remember that?
So much. Let's see, this one doesn't inherently have to do with amnesia, but we'll answer it anyway. What do you do when alters don't get along? Alters don't get along a lot.
Yeah.
It's a very common thing for alters to not get along. A lot of us do not get along. It's so bad sometimes.
Just gotta get back up to your level.
There we go.
Yes.
Close enough. But yeah, what do you do about it, though, is a whole nother thing. It could come down to something like conflict resolution between alters, or it could come down to helping an alter heal from their trauma and, like, express their emotions in a less destructive way. It really depends by the individual case with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's got a problem with who and what's the problem? Like, problem-solving skills that you'd actually use with person to person can actually work with your alters, and it's really helpful because you like go down to it, alters are just another people in your head.
Yeah. The other way is we try to distance those types of alters if we can't come to a resolution. So they're never fronting at the same time, and this is where a system overwatcher would come in hand, because their responsibility is, you know, filtering what alters are fronting and trying to manage the inner workings of things. So with a system overwatcher, it would be easier to have alters not fronting together, because the system overwatcher could relay, oh, this alter is fronting, you don't want to be near the front, I promise.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it works with us when we just can't find a resolution.
And, like, letting them have their own spaces in the inner world, too. Like, rooms that are not close to each other, or if your inner world is bigger, like, cities away from each other, like we do. It's great. But, yeah, giving them some space can be very beneficial sometimes.
Definitely.
Is it possible for one alter to have amnesia, but not the other way around? So alter A has amnesia with alter B, but alter B does not have amnesia with alter A. Alter A does not know what alter B does, but alter B knows what alter A does. I think that's one-way amnesia.
Yeah.
Where they, like, one alter can, like, know what the other one's doing, but the other one just has no idea that's happening. Yeah, that's... sounds like one-way amnesia. So absolutely possible. We have that in a lot in our system.
Definitely.
At what age do memories start to form, or is it different for each child? How do you know if it's amnesia or just suppressed memory?
Amnesia suppresses memories. So it would, if you're uncovering a suppressed memory, you would be smoothing out the amnesia and kind of like sweeping it away like cobwebs. So a suppressed memory is an amnesia episode that's being uncovered. And then I don't know what age child memories start to form. It's been reported, like, one of our friends remembers being an infant and being left alone in a cried out method, which is kind of heartbreaking to know that they remember. But we don't remember anything before the age of 4. So I guess it varies.
Yeah, we have a memory of being like a year old. So, like, it's different. Like, memories, like, short-term memories, I believe, start to form in infancy, and long-term memories start to form in, like, later infancy. But it really depends on the child as well. Like, I know there's, like, probably a psychological study on that, but, like, yeah, I'm not certain. I know there's, like, a number somewhere. Google it, because we're probably gonna do that, too. Yeah, suppressed memory is like a specific thing that's being held. While amnesia could really happen like any time, and it can be, yeah, a lot more foggy, especially if it's day-to-day paired with dissociation.
Yeah, definitely.
Me right now. Experience with emotional amnesia? We've been made aware of this and didn't realize you could have trauma memories with no emotional attachment, and that would count as a type of amnesia until very recently. Is that what that is? Well, you learn something new every day. So much. At first we were just like, oh yeah, this horrible trauma happened to us, but it's chill. And then we have like episodes like earlier today where we're just paralyzed with terror and just barely even memories to go along with said terror. Yes. How about you?
I mean, we're very emotionally detached from our trauma, so yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we speak about it while smiling to our therapist, so we're very emotionally unattached to our trauma.
Yeah. So I guess that's some emotional amnesia there. Are there any techniques you've found to help reduce amnesia between alters? And if so, what are they? Memory is probably the most confusing part about D.I.D. for me, so I'm pretty pumped for this video, TBH.
Communication and notebooks, keeping a note in your phone, writing notes around the apartment or house, whatever you live in, leaving notes.
Yeah. We found that, like, accepting the alters and not trying to push anyone away is also really good for that. Yeah, that's just one of our beliefs that we very firmly believe on our channel here is don't push your alters away. That's just gonna hurt you more.
With experience.
Speaking from experience, we've been there, we've done that, we've been hurt. We don't want you to hurt like that. So just save yourselves the migraines. Don't lock your alters up. I've seen some YouTubers, including you, say that the body has an automatic mode when nobody wants to front. Then not everyone has that, but some of you do. I wonder if it could be dangerous, and if any of you remember or see what's going on when that happens. Oh yeah, the automatic mode. We just keep referring to it as meat suit.
For us, it's just autopilot.
Yeah, I mean, potentially it could be dangerous, I guess, if, like, the autopilot is, like, very desensitized to the surroundings and is in a dangerous area, like driving, for example. However, ours can drive. Well, it's a cautious driver.
Same here. Drives more careful than most of us.
Honestly. Potentially it could be depending on the individual's autopilot, but in some cases it's not dangerous. Yeah, honestly, it's kind of just like an animal, I guess. A little bit.
For us, it's mostly subconscious. It's just like, as long as we know the, like, motor skills to do what we're doing, generally speaking, it's not that dangerous. Because, like, muscle memory, and it's just kind of our subconscious taking over, and our subconscious knows more than we do.
It's like applied muscle memory, basically. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Applied muscle memory is kind of what autopilots are, a little bit.
Definitely. And if we don't know what we're doing, usually there's no autopilot going on because we're focused on learning something. Unless we're in, like, a classroom with a monotone teacher, which we had in high school, then autopilot just falls asleep.
Oh god.
We got counted absent 6 times because we fell asleep in class because it was so monotone that everybody checked out.
No one wanted to front, body out.
Yeah.
I marked absent from the situation.
We were actually marked absent from the class, so it worked.
It works. But yeah, we can kind of see what's going on. Like, the autopilot doesn't really have the, like, mentality to be able to block people from seeing what's going on. Like, an alter has to block that. For us, the body can't block that, so we can kind of just, like, watch in, and it's like a third-person video game where, like, when you die and you, like, watch over other players. while you like wait to respond. It's like that moment. But that's how it is when you just have like not bad amnesia with switches.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have many false memories? If so, how do you differentiate between real and false ones? We struggle with it a lot, and it's like we can never be sure in anything, because what if it's just the product of our mind? We are tired of constant checking if we did homework, if we washed our hair, if we really answered that friend, and so on. Oh, yeah, those kind of false memories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a variety of false memories. Like tactics, masking memories, twisting them so that they appear to be something completely different, but then upon revisiting, you realize that they're trauma memories.
For us, we try to remember the little details about things. For, say, showering, like you mentioned, we would attempt to remember how we were standing in the shower and in what order we actually, like, did stuff, like wash our hair, wash our face, wash our body. That's generally how we know it's an actual shower memory, because we can walk through those steps and be like, yeah, that's how I did it. Other recountings could be like trying to remember what you were smelling or what you were thinking at that time. And if you can't remember little specifics, or there's something that you feel like is a big gapping, like missing hole, typically that's going to be one of your false memories. So if you can remember like little details about the memory, that's key indicators that it's definitely a real memory.
Mm-hmm. What about OSDD-1B systems? What about them? I think I'm an OSDD-1B system, and we barely have amnesia between switches. It makes other people disbelieve us about having D.I.D, and we are afraid because we are an OSDD-1B system that we won't ever have an inner world. Do you know anything about this? Actually, like, one of our best friends has OSDD-1B and an inner world. So, like, you totally can have an inner world with OSDD-1B. And barely having amnesia between switches is how OSDD-1B rolls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'll have some memory loss, like little amounts of amnesia kind of like here and there, like around especially bad memories from the past and then day-to-day stuff that comes with dissociation. So you will have like less memory loss than someone with D.I.D will, but there'll still be like some existing little bits. I keep saying little bits. Little bits. Do you just know when you don't know something, or does it have to be mentioned so you realize that there's something missing in your memories?
It depends on the amnesia, because sometimes you'll be sitting down doing something, and then like when you come to, you'll be sitting maybe across the room, or you're full, you have the taste of food in your mouth, and then you know you've missed something. Whereas if you're sitting down and the next thing you know you're sitting down, you're not going to really realize that you moved to go do something, because you're sitting down in the same spot. So generally speaking, that's how it works. It's not always that way, but sometimes it's kind of like if you are driving and dissociating, you know you got from point A to point B, but you don't really remember the middle. That's not always like an alter taking that place, but it's kind of like if you're doing something, an alter comes out and you have amnesia and you got from point A to point B, but you kind of remember little details of it. I almost said little bits. You remember little details about it, so you kind of don't really realize that you've had an amnesia episode go on. I don't know if that's the right term, but it's the right.
Sounds right.
Yeah. So yeah. So there's different types of varying levels of amnesia and awareness.
Right. Sometimes it's the former, sometimes it's the latter. Like, it's not always consistent, like, what amnesia looks like in a system. Like, it can be very light or very severe, and sometimes it's completely random. Do gatekeepers play a role in amnesia, or does it hit them just as hard as the rest of the system?
I don't really have much to say on gatekeepers. I'm not that well educated, so I'll let you take this one.
I'm just thinking about some of our gatekeepers right now. Sort of like they have amnesia on some things, like on mundane day-to-day stuff. They won't remember a lot of that. But if it comes to things that like have to do with our trauma or like whatever they're keeping behind the gates, then they kind of pick up on that. So some of them do, while others have it slightly less. It does depend on what gate they're keeping. Like if they're like the kind of gatekeepers that prevents alters from switching inappropriately, like we use the phrase system overwatcher for that, and they can have amnesia as well, but like usually not as much. Like they're able to have more access to select memories than other alters are.
Mm-hmm.
How does core and memory relation work when switching in public? It works so weird for us. Just want to see what other systems think.
So maybe they're talking about host.
So, host, core, and original are not inherently synonymous, and our core is Xavier. Our core is not Devin. He pays zero attention when we're switching in public, honestly, unless it's someone he's paying close attention to. And he holds a lot of memories from a lot of people, and he's very flippant about it.
If we're talking about Max, because we don't have a core, it kind of is just like if an alter wants them to remember, or if they're paying attention to the front, then they have those memories. If they're not paying attention to the front, but an alter is shoving memories at them, like, hey, you need to pay attention to this, that would be that. But I'm not sure how in-depth I need to go with this answer, so that's I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, that sounds legit. We literally have 3 alters for host, core, and original. Like, oh, good lord. Is it possible to only have, I guess, semi-amnesia between alters? Like, you don't remember an event unless something really specific is mentioned, and even then, it's more of a fuzzy memory? Or does amnesia between alters have to be total amnesia?
This is actually one of the things that we wanted to address in this video, because there are some little gremlin creatures, anti-goblins, that have stated that D.I.D. means you have to absolutely have amnesia barriers between each alter and absolute amnesia. Nobody in the system can remember what the last alter did. With communication, that like some systems are like that, but not all systems are like that. D.I.D. is very intricate in the way it's formed, and your brain holding on to different things and parts, and it's very complex, the amount of amnesia anyone experiences. So no, it doesn't have to be complete amnesia, and it definitely does vary between different alters.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's one-way amnesia, two-way amnesia, varying types, and like this the running myth that you have to have complete blackouts is not inherently accurate. Like, it varies a lot. Like, if you had complete blackouts, that would put you in an unsafe situation, and D.I.D. itself is something that was created to keep you safe. So if you have these blackouts and are very obviously a different person, then that could put you at a higher risk than like having covert amounts of amnesia where you can't remember specifics, but you remember enough to get by. That's how we survived our child and teen years.
Yeah, same here. So I think that pretty much well-roundedly answers the question.
Mm-hmm. The next one is kind of similar, but like different wordings can produce different answers. So we're gonna just answer like all these. Why do some people have full amnesia while others only have partial? Can different alters experience amnesia differently? Can you have different amounts of amnesia between alters? So yeah, you can have the different amounts, and different alters do experience amnesia differently. And then why do some people have full amnesia while others only have partial? that can have to do with, like, again, like why they were created and what they hold and
what your system needs in regards to safety, and that could mean maybe the host has full amnesia, but the rest of the alters know what's going on. So it can work in the way that your system is just created to keep one individual safe, and the rest of the system is kind of taking that over to keep everything running smoothly. Fam,
do y'all ever get headaches from disassociating?
Fam, we need to have another talk.
There's a difference between disassociating and dissociating. If I were to disassociate things, let's see, these two things, this duct tape and this thing of leftover boozled beans. They're separate and disassociated now, and my head feels fine. However, if I were to dissociate and dissociate my identity away as this disorder is, yes, I could perhaps get a headache.
There's no ass in dissociate.
There is no ass in dissociate. That's gonna be on our Teespring soon.
Yes. Okay, next question.
Does your amnesia work in a more foggy way, like remembering everything but in a non-specific way? Or fragmented way, like remembering only some scenes?
It can be both.
We have both sometimes.
Definitely both.
Yeah, it could be either way, honestly. Like, sometimes the more foggy amnesia is what kind of accompanies more severe dissociation, while the fragmented is, like, if it's more sudden amnesia sometimes, like, that's how it works for us. But it could also be, like, the other way. Alters have different amnesia. It's almost like their style of mind impacts the amnesia. It's whack. Can you talk about partial and emotional amnesia, such as forgetting just one part or all but one part of an event? I've had this issue come up with our therapist recently where I realized that I have strong partial amnesia for a family member. I can remember her enough basics to keep me from questioning it, but when asked to look deeper, I realized everything is surface level and there's so much missing, especially emotional aspects. I feel like this is a type of amnesia that doesn't get addressed much. I knew it existed, but didn't know enough about it to even recognize it at first. Yeah, that's totally emotional amnesia.
Yeah, when that's both partial and emotional amnesia, where you don't really have emotions connected to that point or that memory, and then the partial amnesia, that can happen when you're really dissociated and you don't really remember individual parts, or an older alter was fronting and feeding you surface level memories to make everything seem like a facade. So it could be any one of those.
How do you tell the difference between dissociative amnesia and normal memory loss? Our amnesia normally comes in seconds to minutes gaps where we can't remember how something got in our hand, what we were just doing, or how a song started playing when we don't remember turning it on. Also, is blackout amnesia needed for D.I.D? We get weird hazy knowledge of what happened while others were in front. That's totally normal. That's like how memory be with D.I.D. You don't always need blackouts. They're not a necessity. You have to have some form of memory loss. Because, like, you can have complete blackouts that you don't remember from your childhood, like us.
No, complete blackouts aren't needed for D.I.D. It's the amnesia and partial memories. Like,
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, memory loss. But telling the difference between dissociative amnesia and normal memory loss, I guess normal memory loss doesn't feel like there's like a fog in your head as much. It kind of feels more natural, but like for us, amnesia just feels more like there's something else there. Like it's being impacted, like the memory is being impacted by something that's not you, and yeah, that's kind of how it feels for us.
Yeah, a good, I think, example of that would be like you go to tell your parents something and you can't remember it, and they say, well, I guess it must not be important. That would be normal memory loss. I feel like every human on the planet has experienced that at one point or another. Whereas dissociative amnesia would be like you forgetting about a wedding, like you have no memory of going to a wedding, and then you see a picture and you're like, whoa, I went to a wedding.
Is it between alters, or if someone is fronting and they don't remember what they did while out? Like, I think is amnesia. Is that what amnesia is? And then can alters share memories, or is that what the amnesia is?
I feel like this question is a little all over the place.
I can relate.
This is kind of how our mind works, though, so I understand.
Let's see, amnesia.
So amnesia can both be between alters or solid memory gaps where system-wide doesn't really remember things. So different alters have different levels of amnesia. Some can remember events from this time period, or some won't remember those memories and are like, what, are you crazy? We never did that. And then there's amnesia barriers between alters where it's like one alter can't communicate with another alter, so they don't quite know that they're there. And that can also vary. And memory sharing, like we mentioned earlier, just depends on your system. And that's not really amnesia. That's just alters sharing things with each other. It'd be like if you shared a video of something with a friend.
Yeah, some alters can share memories with more ease than others, but that can be impacted by the amnesia barriers as well.
And sharing memories can be a result of amnesia, where an alter realizes that they don't have this particular thing, they need this particular thing, but they have amnesia around that certain event, or they didn't experience it because they weren't near the front. That can lead to an alter sharing that memory with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be amnesia. It could be the alter just straight up wasn't there.
Yeah. How often do you find yourselves asking other system members what happened in the body due to amnesia barriers?
I feel like for us at least, we don't really ask anymore. It's if we're in a situation and we need to recall that memory, or we're working to recall that memory. It's almost like an automatic thing where that alter kind of goes, oh, you're talking about that, here you go. And they don't even really give it a second thought. But that has come with a lot of work on communication, where alters can kind of just, oh, here you go. You know, just kind of like throwing a piece of paper or something at the other alter's head. But that is, for us at least, how it goes. We don't really ask anymore because we've completed our communication.
Yeah. For us, it's almost like a reflex. Like, someone, like, there's alters paying attention on the inside to what's going on the outside. And, like, whenever someone is talking about something, they're like, oh, Jesus, you need this memory. Like, here's this. Here's everything you need. And here's some stuff you don't need. Here's all these memories so that, like, you can have as cognizant of a facade as you possibly can. That's what happens with a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we all seem so put together, and people are like, oh, you have severe mental disorders? And we're like, yeah.
Communication is definitely key to a lot of things that you need to heal from D.I.D. You guys gave us 84 questions.
We still have 3 pages front and back. We are at almost an hour of filming.
Some of these might go in part 2.
Perhaps. Yeah, I'm just gonna, like, save a couple pages. You know what? I'm just gonna put apart a couple of pages for part 2 here, so that we don't get overwhelmed. Last page. Oh yeah. How do you differentiate between amnesia from someone else having fronted or amnesia from blocked off trauma? How do you work on this in therapy if it's not clear which one it is? Yeah, amnesia from blocked off trauma would definitely feel like something that's more from the past, like further back. Like a little more distant and a little more specific and a little more guarded than just say last Tuesday if you lost dinner time. Like someone wouldn't really care as much about like protecting the taco memories as like child abuse.
For us with mechs, the trauma memories feel like running into a brick wall. If they go down that path, they immediately get a headache. They are pretty much cut off from trying to remember anything from that time period, and it's just a big headache. So that's a telltale sign for mechs that, hey, that's a trauma memory and you don't need to go down that path.
Yeah, remembering trauma memories feels different than remembering something that was like lost in a day-to-day situation.
Whereas if they were trying to recall what we had for dinner last week, it could be a little foggy, but it would still, like, it wouldn't feel painful to try and remember that.
Remembering the tacos shouldn't hurt. Remembering bad things probably will. Yeah, working on that in therapy. If you have a more emotional response to it, if you feel a lot more, like, emotion from other alters as well, but if you start to reach towards that, that's how you know you're hitting something a little more sensitive, and then like to treat that like as a trauma memory, because if they're responding negatively like that anyway, then they probably could use a little help in therapy.
Yeah, definitely.
Is recalling dissociated memories sort of like when you have a flood of memories from a dream you'd previously forgotten?
For us, yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's clear, and other times it is kind of like a forgotten dream that's come back to you. Sometimes you don't know if that memory is actually real because it feels so much like a dream.
Yeah, so much. And like, yeah, sometimes it is like that.
I think one prime example would be, we can't actually tell if this was a memory or a dream. Our grandparents' house, when we were younger, we thought had this little toy area in the back of the kitchen. It was like kitchen supplies and a couple other things, and they'd done some renovations, so we can't remember if that's actually a memory or if that's a dream that we had because we felt secure in that type of situation. Either way, that is a dissociative memory because we remember that time. We also remember swimming in the pool out back, so that's part of a whole memory, but that is also a dissociated memory because we can't remember exactly what's what there. So that's kind of example of a false dissociative memory.
Yeah, that sounds like scrambled.
Definitely.
But yeah, I guess like that flood of memories feeling could feel like that's what it would be like if someone basically just yote a whole memory at you. But like with us, people like to do that thing where if you've ever played Until Dawn and you ever picked up those little things, you totems. You pick up the totems, you get a little bit of like a scene, like a bonus scene for the end of the game. And you can get little seconds of it here and there. Like you get some at the beginning and then some at the end, a few in the middle. It's in no clear order. It's not in a guaranteed order, and it's really scrambled and disconnected and disjointed in some manner. And sometimes like it takes a while to get the whole thing all put together, and it takes multiple alters remembering the thing, and it's a big process sometimes. But other times it is like that flood. Like if you just really need to know, like if you did the homework and showered and brushed your teeth and did the chores yesterday, that can be like that flood. If an ANP and a trauma holder start blending, do the memories also transfer to the ANP, or is blending too confusing for any of that to happen? Now the memories, they do not transfer. At least not for us. Take last night, for example. This thing actually happened. We had Ulysses co-conscious with a trauma holder who you guys haven't seen yet. And yeah, and Ulysses did not get the memories from that trauma holder because holy sweet Jesus. That boy couldn't have handled them. Even though he's an emotionless alter, he would have like completely lost it. But yeah, no, the memories do not transfer to the ANP unless they like are actively trying to do that, or like if they're like on their way to like integrating with each other in the fusing manner, then yes. But if it's like high key co-consciousness where you can't tell who's who, usually not. They might get a few like chunks of memories or a few memories, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
How could you tell the difference between amnesia and just forgetting about your childhood as you got older? Do you have very select few memories from childhood, or is it just a complete blank?
So for us, we think of our childhood and we can remember bits and pieces like going to school or first day of kindergarten, and then middle school we don't really remember almost at all, besides sitting in a cafeteria one day and a kid thinking he was a vampire. The difference between that is elementary school, we had very giant amnesia going on because there was abuse still happening. We know that now, but the way we would have told that apart would be that amnesia from our childhood hurt a bit more to try and dive into than the amnesia from middle school, where we just kind of floated because we didn't really know what we were doing with our life. So for us, it's more, if it doesn't hurt, then it's not really amnesia in the way that we would think of it. It's more like memory loss. Whereas if it hurts, it's like, oh, that was actual amnesia, that was happening to me actively, that was on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you.
Yeah, the amnesia hurt more. And like forgetting about your childhood as you got older, we have those select few memories here and there, and we don't really try to remember like the regular childhood stuff. We always get kind of mad whenever we try to remember our childhood, or people ask us to remember our childhood, like, oh, it's your favorite childhood memory, and it's like, go away. Don't. But like, yeah, I guess just forgetting about your childhood would be like something that, yeah, doesn't hurt. It feels more natural for it to just kind of fade and like kind of just fade over time, like a drawing or a piece of furniture left in the sun,
Mm-hmm.
rather than like amnesia, where it's like instead of just leaving the couch out in the sun to fade, someone put a tarp over that thing and hid it behind a house. Yeah. So parts are blanks. We've got blank chunks, but we also have memory chunks.
Mm-hmm. And another way you can tell the difference is if you try to, say, recall a Christmas. You can kind of remember the little bits that happened during that time, and if it was a happy time for you, it wouldn't feel like you're trying really hard to remember this certain thing that happened in this area, and it would be more like, oh yeah, we had Christmas, I don't really remember what's going on, but that's okay, and you carry on with your life. That is the sign of a regular memory just kind of fading, and you're just like, okay, if that makes any sense.
Memory rarely makes sense.
Yeah, if you're trying to go down a rabbit hole and you go, oh, what about that one time at Christmas? There was that person there, but I can't really remember what they looked like, and there was something that happened there, but I don't quite grasp it. That would be an example of like an amnesia moment where it's part of your childhood, and yeah, you forgot most of the details of Christmas, but you're not actually focusing on those details. You're focusing on this very singular detail that you can't recall.
Sounds about right. see. Can the alters forget who they are or what their job is? I find it interesting if they can or can't. Yes. Yes, they can. Alters can forget who they are just as easily as... I mean, the host is an alter. Yeah. Alters and hosts can just as easily forget who they are or what their job is. Yeah, amnesia can impact anyone in the system. It's really not that picky. Anyone can experience amnesia.
Yeah. And we have alters that don't remember their names and given themselves new names because they just haven't fronted enough to use their name that often, so they just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah. Literally same. We just have like some names that are reserved that can't be taken for new alters, and then alters who are just like, I have a name but I have to find it again. It's like, oh, you poor soul.
Yeah, that's happened a lot.
Baby name lists.
They're a thing.
D.I.D. culture is baby name lists.
And notebooks.
Is there such a thing as partial amnesia, like remembering fragments instead of a whole memory, or is that normal? Or is it just amnesia? Also, when it comes to a memory that you can recall, but it feels like it's being shown to you instead of actually being yours, is that part of amnesia and memory sharing? The bottom one, yes.
Partial amnesia, we've already talked about in this video. Where you remember little bits of things, but you don't quite understand what happened. Whereas full amnesia would be you don't remember going to that party and the pictures are totally foreign to you.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, totally partial amnesia is absolutely a thing. And remembering fragments instead of a whole memory, yeah, it could be fragmented, it could be foggy, it could be either. Is that normal? I don't know.
I think it's normal in D.I.D.
Yeah, I think it's normal in D.I.D, but I don't know how normal people remember things. So, maybe ask someone there how their memory works. Ask a singlet, TM. We should ask Caleb how his memory works.
He wants Caleb back on the channel. Vote now.
If you want us to ask Caleb... Ask Caleb questions about what it's like being a singlet. Drop some of them below. I'd be interesting to see.
Definitely.
Is it possible to have one or more alters that you don't have amnesia between while also having one or more alters that you do have have amnesia. Hamnesia.
Hamnesia.
I almost said hamnesia. When you don't remember the ham from last night, you get hamnesia. It got me the hamnesia. I'll reread that. Is it possible to have one or more alters that you don't have amnesia between while also having one or more alters that you do have amnesia between in the same system? Yes. We do. We have a lot of alters who have partial amnesia than ones with full amnesia.
Mm-hmm. And we have alters like Alexander and Ashley. They don't have any amnesia between them. They were married for a while there. So, they grew closer and they have no amnesia between them. If one of them fronts, the other can easily access those memories if they wanted to. Whereas if it were Ashley and Sophia, we'll go with our two fiery females of the system, they wouldn't really be able to remember between the two. So that's just another example. They haven't really had the communication to go through with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some alters do have better communication, and with the rest of the system too. For example, if I had to get memories from Liberty, no problem. They'd be right there. If I came out after a switch with him, I could have those memories, no problem. Phoenix? No. Phoenix would be like, who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you people? So yeah, definitely amnesia can be different between alters in the same system. Then I've seen alters of yours switch out and continue what the previous one was doing even if they didn't have as much experience doing it. How does this work in terms of amnesia? Do they just pick up muscle memory so they don't actually have to remember something that they haven't done before? Yeah. Yeah, muscle memory is a big chunk of it.
And also communication. So for us, say we're doing one of the crafting videos, and an alter comes out midway through. We're sewing. They've never touched a sewing machine before, but they stood in the background and they were co-conscious for a little bit, watching and getting the information they needed to continue on with that. That is how we seamlessly switch during live streams. That's why we look dissociated for about 10 minutes or so before the next alter switches out, because alters are getting co-conscious and trying to figure out exactly what's going on before they come out, because they don't want to do that thing where they go, oh, well, I have no clue what we're doing, so bye.
Hijack the live stream and do something completely different. People tuning in being like, what is this?
So that's how we kind of put on the show of seamless switching, or being covert in a way of, you know, going through with the motions of what we were just doing so it doesn't look suspicious to outsiders.
Right. Covert D.I.D.
It's a big thing.
Big thing. Also, we're going to make a video about that because it's very important. Covert D.I.D. is a very valid thing.
Yes.
And then I think this is the last question, unless there's another side that we didn't read. Yeah, we already read that one. So this is our last question for this video.
These are the ones we have for next video.
4 pages out of 6. This last one is, when did you start noticing your amnesia? I'm asking this because I'm recently diagnosed January, and I started to notice after my diagnosis.
I think that's super normal, because before you have any suspicions, you're not really going to try to pay attention to if you have amnesia when you're losing time, unless something super scary happens, like you're in a car and then you're on the floor or in the hospital. So if something drastic doesn't happen to prompt you to take a closer look at what's going on, you're probably not going to notice your amnesia. But once you get a diagnosis, you're actively looking for it then, because you're trying to work on communication and lessening those amnesia barriers.
Yeah, or like when you start getting help from therapy or start spending enough time with someone to point out when you are saying things you have no recollection of saying.
Or drawing.
What? Oh god, I just got the memory back of that. Someone was just like, oh yeah, you drew something that you have no recollection of, and we don't even know who did that. There's an example of memory sharing right now before your very eyes. Yeah, so that's what it can be like. Yeah, when did we start noticing ours? I can't remember.
We started noticing probably after our friend pointed out that we were losing time, because we actually actively started trying to pay attention to that. Our friend said, hey, do you remember this chick coming out and screaming at me? We're like, no. And so from then on, we kind of attempted to pay attention a little bit more to when we lost time or what was going on during those hours, and trying to pick up the pieces.
Yeah. I think for us was when, like, I think it was during the beginning of college, when, like, we were finally allowed to be like, okay, we're out of our, like, terrible place of upbringing, we can actually breathe, and it's like, oh, wait, there's pieces missing. So, yeah, basically, when we were out of our parents' households for college, that's when we started.
All right, well, that was the last question.
That's all the questions. Thank you all for asking these. I know that, like, it was a lot, but, like, it's really good to get a good, thorough explanation of what amnesia is and is not. So we appreciate all of your questions, and
don't be a little gremlin and tell people that you have to have complete amnesia with D.I.D. because it's not true.
It's not true. Be a goblin and hit subscribe and listen to our words.
Also, if you were curious about that Teespring thing that we mentioned at the beginning of the video, usually there's a banner underneath videos with our products. You can click on the Teespring link and it'll bring all of the products up. And there's also a store tab on our YouTube channel. It's next to the community tab, which you should also press the bell for because we post things on the community tab, and that's where all this questioning came from. So everything.
We've got a lot of cool tabs with a lot of cool stuff. We also have playlists too. We've got one that's called Best for Beginners, and a lot of people are new here because of some recent occurrences that have happened. And if you're new to D.I.D. and want some of our more like crash coursey videos and ones that explain some more concepts that we like, casually throw around, like co-consciousness and inner worlds and system names, like we've got videos explaining those in there. So give it a look if you want some more information.
Definitely. All right, well, I think that's it for this video.
Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, goblins. Wash your hands. Drink water. Put on hand lotion if you wash your hands a lot, which you should be doing.
Wear masks and gloves and go out one by one.
Be safe.
All right, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.